other big players, but we bounce ideas because things are changing so fast. It's hard to keep up. So with AI coming in, all the social media advertising, it's all changing at light speed, kind of like every few months. Welcome, good to see you. All right, a small class. You can tell we're starting to get to the end of the season. It's kind of good. Can you hear me? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? See, we're not live, are we?
Yeah, we are.
Oh.
I told you that.
We're trying to stream this thing better. So if you happen to miss it, or if you just don't want to wake up, you're in your pajamas, just want to watch you could watch from the comfort of your home. So we're seeing more. We'll have as many students watching live and hundreds watching afterwards. And then those folks watching online, we know you're going to be in to see us later because we hear them all the time. They're going, oh, I saw the class today. I'm in for the whatever it is. So can I start, you think? Mm-hmm. Oh, good. Hi, everyone. My name's Ken. I'm the owner of the Garden Center. My lovely assistant is my daughter, Mackenzie. She's the third generation Garden Center owner. How Waters Garden Center became a thing, Mackenzie's grandfather, back in the 50s, moved here when there was an economic downturn. He was selling fencing down in Phoenix, and it just fell out from underneath him. He said, well, if we're going to move, we're just going to Prescott. They've been coming up here all along. Well, there weren't any jobs. He just said, well, landscaping. So he didn't even have a pickup truck. Here's his story, okay? He was a good storyteller. He had a station wagon. Remember those things, like before minivans? Station wagon, a shovel, and he borrowed a wheelbarrow. He started a landscape company. Did that through the 50s. In the 60s, 1962, because there were no plant places. He was going to California, went back with plants. He just needed a place to hold plants. And so he started Waters Garden Center, basically to supply or to hold the plants for his landscape company. We've had pet supplies, feed stores, pet stores, landscape maintenance, growing operations. When I came to buy the garden center in 2002, I don't like landscaping. I don't like growing. I like retail and people and the stories and the connections, and that it's like getting up every day and it's exciting. I get to deal with gardeners and all that kind of stuff. And growing, that was the most painful thing I've ever done. You're in a greenhouse all day by yourself, watching plants grow. That is not not my definition of fun. Now, some folks love that, but that's just this is kind of where we're at. Mackenzie comes to us. Thank God. She graduated with her master's degree in family and marriage therapy, counseling during COVID. Was doing her therapy work during COVID. And I remember the day she came home and just said, people are really messed up. I don't think I could do this for a living. And she kind of came up to retail. And that's my interpretation of her story. But she's a great retailer, really good. Retail basically is therapy in many ways. It's connection, especially with plants, environment, your backyard. It's you lose track of time. Come on in, welcome. You lose track of time where I do. That's what I do to de-stress. My life is coming at me at a million miles an hour. The phone down, go garden, and all of a sudden the day's done. And it's dinner time. Wow, where did it go? That's what gardening does. So today, what we're talking about are the top plants that are really tough. And I kind of curated, how am I going to share, folks? I mean, these are hardcore gardeners here at the end of the season. Growing season goes through October 29 is our first frost date. That's when you need to be really careful and protect those tomatoes, cucumbers, all those plants that are summer plants. You'll get a frost about then. Plus or minus, the locals use Halloween as the demarcation line. Okay, that's going to be potential frost. Now, we're famous for Indian summers. It'll be frosty and it'll be really nice again, all the way through really till the first part of December. It's just beautiful days, and then a frost, and then beautiful days. So if you can just cover them for a little bit, it'll be nice the following week. You can keep them growing. You get that last little harvest. What I'm doing right now, kind of an insider tip before we get started, let me just tell you where. So I curated the biggest screening plants, grasses, because no one ever covers grasses. Now is grasses. I'm going to share that with you. The native mix, we got to go down the hardcore. Some of you are into cactus. You can't have them. There's like 2 varieties that grow here, but there's a whole bunch of yuccas, agaves that you can have that are glorious. And then a mixture of evergreen kind of stuff. What are the hardiest of all of those? So I'm going to share all those in about 50 minutes or less. And then we'll probably, this kind of group, we can interact, have some questions if you want. We'll see how engaged everyone is. But before we get started, what I'm doing in my own gardens, I am actively pulling plants out. Yesterday, I pulled out a tomatillo. It was done. It was so tired. I should have done it 2 weeks ago. I just didn't have the guts. Oh, a few more. Ripping that thing out of there. It freed up a space in the garden like this big. Zucchinis. I picked my last zucchini, and then I just said, you are looking too just tired. Time for you to come out. Freed up a space like this in the garden. I'm trying to actively free up space in my gardens. I'm doing the same thing for flowers. So some of my zinnias, the vincas, they just look yellow, they're blooming, but kind of ugly. The geraniums, come on in and join us. The geraniums, if they aren't in full bloom right now, you get yanked out. I don't care how healthy and beautiful you are. I want to make room for my winter or fall vegetables, broccoli, cauliflower, lettuce, things like, I know I brought some here. These kind of plants love frost. The flavor comes out better in frost. The mistake rookies make is they plant these too late in the season, usually in May, and then it bolts and gets bitter tasting, gets all flavored because they don't like the heat. They need the cold and the frost. They need that wintry bite in the evening and then bright days during the day. Plant these now through October. The sooner the better because it gets them all rooted out. So I'm trying to actively do that in my garden so I can get them full before that first frost date. The more days you can be in front of October 29th or Halloween, the better off you are because these things will keep growing. You can definitely have broccoli, spinach, kale through winter. You can harvest all these things for Christmas dinner. And your guests will be awestruck. You're such a gardener. Oh my gosh. You did this fresh from the garden. So I gave up back in October. You're still picking because this is a very mild 4-season climate. So you can literally garden every month of the year if you strategically add things. Right now I'm also adding, where they at right here? Pansies for you folks online. Aren't those pretty? Pansies love the cold. Most parts of the country tell you to plant these now. They'll be blooming through the end of the year and then they die. Not here. Here they bloom for the end of the year and then keep on going through until next June. They're in glorious bloom. Most folks plant these at the wrong time. They're planting them in April and May. They get 6-8 weeks out of them and then they vaporize in the heat. If you plant them in the fall, they're glorious through winter. They're just amazing plants, but it's all about timing. This is a unique part of the country where it's 4 seasons, but it's very mild. So our winters, even in January, we just had a foot of snow. It melted in a few days, and then it's really nice out. Plants like that kind of stuff. So I'm trying to actively be aggressive in some of my plants, some of my summer plants, so I can make room for some of these, especially closer to when it's really cold out. I've been stuck indoors for 6 weeks. I want to look outside my windows, sip my tea, eat some fresh baked cookies, and look at my gardens and go, gosh, I planted that. And they're in full bloom while it's chilly out. So I'm trying to bring them in where I can enjoy them by the front door, by the back patios, places where I can see them. So the gardens kind of shrink in and get a little closer as we progress into autumn and the winter gardens. Yep.
Pigs and deer on them.
Pigs and deer love these. Watch them. You don't put them where they can get to them. They're going to be. In fact, this is an edible flower
Okay.
for you and I. It's even more edible for javelina, rabbits, that kind of stuff. So if it's an edible plant, probably it's edible for everything. So be careful.
You never said what the other one is.
Oh, this is broccoli,
Okay.
kale. What's another one? Lettuce is another one. Spinach. All the winter vegetables, they're down there, and they can be planted now. The point being for today, try to get them in before your summer gardens. Clear out those summer plants. They're so huge. They're mangy. They've just taken over. As soon as you get even close to the last crop, you pull those last cucumbers, those last eggplants, rip that thing out. Freshen up the soil, plant your new ones. So most folks wait until after we get frost and it vaporizes the gardens. Because those summer plants, they don't like the cold. You get a first frost, instantly go into black mush. Don't wait till then to plant these. Try to do it earlier if you can. You'll be a better gardener. Just kind of an insider tip. Okay, now today's class is on the best, the top. I curated some that were kind of a little bit different, unusual. So our niche in the marketplace, you can buy it. You can buy a mom anywhere. This is a commodity. It's just most forest grade plants. Most mums you're finding are grown in greenhouses, and they will not translate out into the gardens. You want, to my friends, you want a mum that was grown outdoors in the sun, and it's adapted. It's a garden mum, not a floral mum. That's the difference. We're trying to pick ones that are made for gardens, but can also be enjoyed indoors if you want to buy. I'm taking these by the front door. I don't even plant them. Or I'll just put them tucked behind the coleus or something. It just looks like it's bulging out of my garden so I can enjoy it close up. And then when I'm done, I'll plant it out in gardens later. So I can put it out there now. Why not enjoy it? We live in America. You can have your cake and eat it too. We're the greatest country that's ever existed, ever. A mom is one of those that can really brighten up your front doors, your patios, your decks, those places where you're enjoying that sunset right now. It's so pleasant right now. So great, except for the mosquitoes. Anyone else have mosquitoes? They're terrible. Flies aren't so bad. The mosquitoes are bad. So we got our kids coming in. So they're Texans. They're coming into town today. So last night I was spraying sayonara in the gardens. Those mosquitoes, they're hanging out in the bushes during the day. They're in there where they're protected. So I actively went around the patio, the front patio and the back patio deck area. I just sprayed this, focused on the shrubs. And it will knock down the mosquitoes for the weekend. So we could be out there and enjoy it. A few mosquitoes, party's over. A few flies, you can kind of do this and it's still going. But mosquitoes, all the gals are indoors. That's it. So sayonara is a game changer. Put your hose right here, and hose down things. And it'll really knock them back for you. So just an insider tip. All right. Let's see. I've got 2 handouts. One is the top 10 plants. iCountry top 10 plants. And I know this is your first class. I want you to have that. That is for you. And I put together a list of Yavapai friendly plants. It's a hardcore natives. Many of them too ugly to really have in your yard. They're native. They look kind of rough. But some of them are really nice. Then I went, okay, what's the next tier down? So these are the native. These are the really tough. And they look pretty good. It's Russian sage. It's classic. It's not native, but it sure thinks it is. And then I went for the next tier down. So there's 3 tiers going native, really tough, and just tough. It's like 4 pages doesn't go into description. It goes, here they are. Here's shrubs, here's perennials, here's trees. If you want both of those, the top 10 plant list and the Yavapai friendly list, give me your email. Put that down there, and I will send that out to you later today. You'll see an email. It'll be kind of cheesy. Just real quick, here they are. But that'll be to you. Okay. If you don't want that, don't put your name down. And then if you're part of the master group list for you all, I think we put those links in the bottom right-hand corner. And so you can download those at your convenience. If you could, while you're there, thumbs up, like, comment, all those things that make us rank better with Google. It's important for little guys. Anyway, okay. Oh, if you're part of the master list, this is not going to all 12,000 Garden Club members. It's only for you all. So it's only going out to just to you. I don't want to pollute everyone's email. Okay, let's start with the native stuff. Let's go with here. See if we can make that. We will see that right there. So I brought these. So right now, you're seeing a plant that was about knee-high with red spiky flowers on a yucca. Okay, it had this flower on it, but it was red. That's the most common, okay, a red yucca. #1 seller. I brought this one because it's so unusual. It's yellow. Same exact plant, just blonde instead of a redhead. Same plant, just the flower changes. I also brought it for like my red ones at home. They have stopped blooming, and now they're starting to form these little bean pods. When you see that, sometimes you can pull the bean pods off and get them to bloom a little bit longer, but basically you can take that and cut that stem off whenever you want. If it's by the front door and it's got the bean pods, you can have fun with it. I've taken red spray paint, kind of made them decorative. You can do all kinds of stuff with them. But ultimately, you're finally going to take this and cut it right back as close as convenient back to the ground. So that's how you treat these yucca. This will be evergreen and very tough. It's got a deep carrot-like root that just holds a lot of moisture to it. This one is related to this. This is called giant yucca. So it's this plant on steroids. Instead of getting cute little, oh, isn't it cute? Now it gets this big with big red flowers, not just little red flowers, big red flowers. It's the same thing, only giant form. Sometimes you need that kind of structure further out by that fence or kind of further out to soften up those fence lines, property lines. This is not big enough to do that. This one is. So again, same flower. When it gets to blooming, cut it back as far as you can and keep this intact. So yuccas are very strong growers. These are two others. Just to show you the variety, this is a gold yucca. It just says this. If you've got a lot of dark colored rock, this really pops. Just looks really striking because it gives you that contrast where some of the bluer colors kind of blend in with those earth tones. This really gives you a pop. I grow this one in a big mustard colored container. It greets you as you come from the front yard down the steps of the backyard. Big. Mine's this big around. It's just glorious. Just a big shiny against a dark fence. Looks really good. Okay. It gets a white flower to it. Same thing. It's called blue beaked yucca. So it's just a little bit different texture to it, a little bit more ball shaped, and I think it has a white flower to it. So yuccas do really well here. The other ones that's like that, this is called agave or century plant. This is the one that gets that huge flower, like you can almost watch it grow by day. It gets up about 10, 15 feet tall. That's this one. Looks innocent. And the rumor is it blooms once every 100 years, thus century plant. Not really. I don't know where they came up. Maybe in the wild, in your backyard, I find it blooms every 15, 20 years. It'll just start taking off. And it's just how plants work. Out in the wild, this is the mother plant. So she'll put on some pups on the sides as she gets mature, as she starts to bloom. But once that host plant blooms, it dies. And so the pups will survive. So she's leaving the pups behind. And the goal, the way this plant creeps across the hilltops, is she's thinking, oh, I'm going to be 15 feet away over there. She just has a seed up here and then falls. And then she just kind of tumbles across. That's where you get big pockets of agave. It's a native. There's a couple that grow here. This one you'll be on top of the Bradshaws, that kind of stuff. So this one's one that I would plant and not put on irrigation. I'd water it by hand. Because if you kill this, it will be by overwatering. And you notice all these plants, You notice how they have these brackets or foliage that comes out? They're rain harvesting. When it does rain, they're trying to bring the water to the core of the plant. Even yuccas. This is all about rain harvesting. So they're just bringing their foliage out, and they're bringing that water as it comes down to the heart of the plant, so it gets more water. That's what makes them so water kind of. They just don't need a lot of moisture. And so these kind of plants, I would say, be careful. Many times I'll put them on my drip irrigation and treat them like a tree. Once a week watering or so. And then once they're established, I bend that irrigation back, tape it off. I forget about it. It just does its own thing. They're truly native plants. Okay. Those are the spiky natives. These are sumacs. We have a lot of native sumacs that grow here. These plants, believe it or not, are related genetically. DNA-wise, they're cousins. They just don't look like it. This is called tiger eye sumac. It gets about this hip high, and then it's called tiger eye because it has this real bright yellow. It's probably in the next couple of weeks. In fact, you might start, no, not quite. Another couple of weeks, it'll start to get this bright yellow with an orange tinge. It looks like a tiger's eye. That's the name. So this one's it has almost like an iris. It's got rhizomes, kind of runners. So it runs like this. So the roots are very thick, very deep, and it runs and just kind of comes up in groups. So this I use to accent my pond because it's got that bright yellow. It gets that dark, mysterious depth of the pond. It just brings out the accent, designer-esque, brings out the pond water features. Very pretty and very tough. I don't water, don't care for it. It just does its own thing. This is one you'll see growing wild around the neighborhoods when you're hiking the forest. This one will pop up. This is called Rhus trilobata. Rhus is sumac. There's no botanical, there's no common name for it. It's just trilobata. I wonder if there is. Nope, just trilobata. It's a native. So this one turns bright red and orange in the fall. Gets up about hip high or so, kind of ball shaped. But again, very tough native kind of plant. These are all companions with each other. So you put these in the same designs. If you got a rental property, you want the toughest of tough, here you go. No tenant can kill these. So if you'd like to travel more than garden, this is your plant because you can go on that Panama Canal cruise for 6 weeks, come back, they're still going. So that's how these are used. Okay. For me, I think in terms for my own gardens, I've got a half acre up above the high school, up in the Eagle Ridge area, up above Prescott Lakes, that whole neighborhood area. For me, I think in terms of oasis. So I've got a lot of native oaks, a lot of native-y things the house is built in amongst. But you can get too much native stuff, in my opinion. I want some garden-esque things to it. And so as I draw closer into where we spend most of our time, I have pockets or islands of bright colors and things. Called oasis garden, oasis design. So I've got areas where I'm totally inefficient with water because I want them to be beautiful and glorious, but it's not the whole property. It's very isolated pockets where I've got color. I'm a flower grower. I love flowers. I love going out and pinching my flowers and deadheading my flowers. It's therapy for me. I like butterflies. I like hummingbirds. All the things that flowers bring. Well, those take some moisture, some water to do that with. So I've got pretty sophisticated irrigation controls and stuff, but as I feather out away from the back deck, it goes more and more into the native stuff, where I just kind of, if you can't survive on your own, likes to be you. You want to be, and if you look ugly in my yard, I'm going to rip you out. So chainsaws are invented to beautify things. So it's got to look glorious all the time, but as I get further and further away, it becomes more native. Okay, so there's a way to blend the two. All right, lastly, I'll leave you with these three, which are more colorful. You're seeing this. This one is blooming all, especially Prescott Valley. It's got some of the most beautiful. My brain's going blank. Oh my gosh. Bird of paradise. Duh. Bird of paradise gets up pretty tall. Kind of has this lacy feel to it, and then it just blooms in yellow. Now be careful. You see some of the ready yellow ones sold here. That one's not hardy. Okay, winter kills it off every few winters, just obliterates it. The yellow one is at least a zone, maybe 2 zones hardier. It's a winter that kills them off. So the red one grows down in Phoenix, but it doesn't translate up here very well. Maybe Sedona. I know you folks are tuned in. Okay, I hear you. The Verde Valley, fine. It's a different. That's a zone warmer. You can grow it, but there's a line in the mountain where it goes, and no more above here. So go with the yellow one. It'll be tougher. It is deciduous. That is, it will lose its leaves in the winter, so it's not evergreen. It's deciduous, but it's a really tough plant. Hummingbirds, butterflies are going to love you. Okay, this is a big one. The next one that's down from that, this one gets up about this high. This is a sage, Texas sage. Just does this, only gets bigger and fuller. Okay, it's like autumn sage is their number one seller. It's a red plant about knee high, about 3 by 3 by 3. Hummingbirds just love it. That's number one seller. This one's the next size up. So you plant them, they're companions with each other. But very robust. Takes the wind, takes the sun. Animals don't eat sage. Anytime you hear an herbal name like sage, salvias, lavender, rosemary, animals don't eat those. I don't know why. It's got that herbally, you can almost rub the foliage and go, oh yeah, probably they're not going to bother that. And that's true. They just don't like it. This is another one that animals don't bother. This is red hot poker, because the stems look like you put it in a fire, you bring it out and go, oh, it's like that. So there's real big ones, get about this big. Sometimes they're too big. This is a smaller one. It's a dwarf, so it only gets knee high or so. So next click down, and then you get some fancy new colors coming out. Okay, this is a true perennial. That is, it is going to hibernate underground for the winter. Then you're going to cut it off with a weed whacker or hedgers or whatever, and it's going to come back fresh, brand new every spring. And then this is a summer through fall bloomer. Okay, red hot poker. All right, that's it for the native-y kind of thing. There's other things out there. There's some cactus and stuff, prickly pears. You can grow prickly pear. You can grow jumping cactus or choyas. You're not going to have, you're just not going to have those great big desert phoenix kind of things. Saguaros don't grow here. But the pokey little things, they do, okay? All right, let's go with screening. So I brought the big 5. There's more down there, but I just thought the most popular 5, what are they? How can I share them with you? And I just went from tall to small. Actually, all of these are head high and above, and they are thick, so you're not going to see through them, okay? And so you will start with, this one's called Privet. It's one of great big green. It's probably the number one seller in the country as far as big screens go. You want a big hedge like this. Texas, like a number one. This is the number one hedge. East Coast, kind of one of the number one hedges. Here it does amazingly well because it's got these real thick, waxy leaves to them, which make them really efficient with their water use. The more you cut on this, the thicker, the fuller it gets. It's truly like a hedge plant. If you just let it go, it'll be a solid green mass up to about 8 feet tall by 8 feet wide. Okay, just privet. Gets a fragrant white flower in the spring. It's kind of quite sweet smelling. Not real significant. You don't see it so much as you smell it. It will actually move. Great little plant. It's evergreen, yeah. All of these are evergreen because privacy kind of means I want it year round. I don't want to see through it ever. So this is probably the oldest fashioned, probably the toughest of all of them. Just a juniper. It's a big juniper, but it's not a tree form. It's actually a shrub form. It's called mint julep. Probably the biggest of the shrub junipers. It will easily go up head high, and you can trim it. Either just let it go, or you can trim it and make it more boxy, hedgy looking. So it adapts. It likes to be cut on. So it looks innocent now, but it's going to be big. So Great thing about junipers is you cannot kill them. It's really tough. You have to really work at killing these, like run it over with a Mack truck. I don't know, have your neighbors poison it with herbicides. It's going to be hard to kill. This is one that I plant in some of my rental kind of stuff because even tenants can't kill it. It's a good choice. Kind of old fashioned. Also, let me just give junipers a break. Everyone goes, I've got allergies. I can't take junipers. You have juniper allergies to the male junipers, not the females. Males are the ones that put the pollen out. If you ever see a juniper in spring that just they explode in the sun, they kind of go poof, and he thinks he's going to pollinate the entire hillside, and he is, and he's the one that's spreading that pollen around. It's the pollen that you're having interacting to. Well, we have the ability to just sell females. We only sell female junipers at Waters Garden Center. We're not starting by seed. We're starting by cuttings, so we can determine what sex. So the females, as you're walking through a forest, you see a big juniper tree. It's got berries on it. That's a female. If it doesn't have berries, it's got this yellow hue, like pollen polyps all over the place. That's a male. So that's the difference. So you can have better plants in your yard. You can have really robust plants without the allergies. So just kind of, I think there's a place for junipers. And so I'll just give them a heads up anyway. Enough is enough. Cotoneaster, or cotton Easter is how it's sometimes pronounced, but cotoneaster. There's a native one. There's several native ones that grow wild here. It's an evergreen plant. Puts on a white flower in spring with some red berries. It's kind of cute. It's called red clusterberry cotoneaster. Looks innocent, but this thing's going to be a 10 by 10 by 10 monster. And it grows fast. Probably one of the faster growing of all the privacy screens. It likes to be cut on, so you can trim it, shape it, gets even fuller. And it is evergreen. So, and the beauty of a cotoneaster, I don't know why it looks delicious, but deer, antelope, javelina, they don't bother this plant ever. So it's a good strong grower for here. Evergreen. Number one seller. I put my kids through college with this. Red tip Botania. It's 12 by 12 by 12 or bigger. This one, the mistake people make, they put it right up against the foundation of the house, and all of a sudden their house is obliterated by this ginormous evergreen shrub that you cannot cut on it enough. Put it in the right place. So you put it too close to the driveway, and all of a sudden you can't get your truck or car down the driveway because it's just encroaching all the time. So respect it, give it space. But for myself, for my friends, I would never plant this plant. It's too big for most places. Every animal eats it. It gets every bug you can think of. It gets mildew. I mean, I have reoccurring income just from the maintenance to keep this thing going. I'd rather see you use some of these other ones and you'll have an easier life. But it is the number one seller because the new growth is all red. And it does grow fast. But it has got to be careful where you put it. So I don't have this one in my yard, but I do have a lot of the other ones because of the maintenance issues. Okay. And if you're from the East Coast, these two are the number ones back there. This is euonymus. So euonymus, it's got a big waxy leaf. It's really efficient. Does really well with our wind and our sun. Does amazingly well. Gets up easily this full. It's probably the number one hedging kind of plant in the Midwest and East Coast because it's such a it's just a bright color to it. So if you like gold grape, this is the exact same thing in silver. Same size. Everything's the same. Just what color do you like most? The negative with these, they like everything about growing here, except deer also like them. Rabbits also like them. So be careful if you've got rabbits and deer. These are not your people. We can find some other ones for you. Oh, I should have brought a silverberry. Dang it.
I don't have any.
Oh, okay. They have the same thing that's a native. It's called silverberry. Obviously, it outsells this one because we just read out. We'll get more, but there's some other ones that are probably better choices. Those are your big shrubby kind of evergreens. From there, we go up into trees. So your big kind of upright evergreen trees. Arizona cypress, number one. I didn't bring those because, well, it was in the day yesterday, and I just didn't want to schlep them over here. But this whole section over here is nothing but upright evergreens, which are windbreaks, screenings, that kind of stuff. So Arizona cypress is a native. It's a 25 by 12 foot. It's a beast. Compared to these, much larger scale, like 3 times the scale. So there's a place for those. That's property lines back. Your neighbors across the valley. They put a new barn up, and not as pretty as block it right there. The headlights coming down your street right into your front area. That's where you put those great big screening kind of plants. Then I went to some smaller evergreen things. So these two are probably, this one outsells the other one. This is called Indian Hawthorn. It's cute. It only gets this big. So I've got this in containers on either side of my garage, the big pot, because it's evergreen, has a very fragrant pink flower in the spring. So this would be great against that covered back patio, around the patio area. That's where you use this kind of stuff. It could line the driveway. It'll take our heat, takes our sun. It's tough. So treat it like you would your trees in your yard. Water it once a week, deep soak. It'll be happy. So Indian hawthorn, evergreen again. We do a lot of spruce and pine, fir, cypress, cedar, junipers, all that conifer. We are in some of the largest conifer forests in the West. And so all the conifers do really well. Most of the conifers. Conifer is things with a needle on it. Yeah, this is called a nest spruce. It's a spruce tree. It's a spruce bush, not a tree. This is related to Colorado spruce. It just gets this beautiful little ball shape, and that's it. So I like to use these in containers, or if I'm designing for you, those planters on either side of the steps going up, those places where they're just so formal looking in an easy, informal way. And so this will get easily 3 by 3 by 3, maybe 4 foot wide. Kind of gets like this big around. So, but it's tough. It's a tough little plant. Colorado spruce, of course, grows here. Spruce mountains right here. They grow wild. Firs and Colorado spruce are there. And there's most Colorado spruce are too big for most yards anymore, especially the smaller yards. So we're getting more and more into the dwarfed varieties of spruce, like Fat Albert spruce. It's the same thing, but it only grows 15, 18 feet tall instead of 60. But it has that perfect Christmas tree shape to it. So those are very good plants. Okay. Let's go with these evergreens. Keep going. This is probably #1 selling evergreen as far as shrubs go. Oops. This is Nandina, or heavenly bamboo is what you Californians call it. So most heavenly bamboo gets quite big and kind of rangy looking. It has a bamboo kind of stalk. It's not related to bamboo. It's different, but it has sort of a look. So it gets that name. This is a dwarf variety. Only gets this tall instead of this tall. And it keeps its ball shape much better. Keeps, without any care, just keeps nice and full and chubby. It's called Gulfstream. No, this is Tuscan Flame. Tuscan Flames are gets more purple in the winter months if you have it out in full sun, it gets this bright color to it. If it's in more shade, it will stay green. So the more sun you give these, the brighter the colors come out starting November through March. It has these real bright reds, oranges, purples. So we sell probably a dozen different varieties of Nandina. The main differences are going to be how tall does it get, and mainly what color does it turn in the fall and winter of the year. Okay. Again, it looks delicious. Animals don't eat this. It's got a sap. They do not like the taste of Nandina, so they leave it alone. It's a good plant. If you've got javelina things roaming around, this is your plant. This is related to this one. This tells you this gets 10 feet tall. This is that red clusterberry cotoneaster. This gets, 18 inches tall, but then spreads. like this. So this is a ground cover. We use this to soften up that rock lawn where it's just too much rock. You want some borders, kind of make it, give it some living, breathing, get a feel of life and vitality. This is a great one. We'll frequently companion plant this with spreading junipers. Got a good block of here, block of there. But it gets the same white flower, same red berries as this, only it spreads prostrate instead of upright. Yeah. Cotoneaster or cotton Easter is how you spell it. Coral Beauty is, there's several varieties down. This is Coral Beauty Cotoneaster. Great plant here. No thorns. It looks like pyracantha. Remember that as kids, the one with the you pick the orange berries off and chuck them at each other as a kid. Maybe that's just me as a boy, but has the thorns on it. This one looks like that, but without the thorns, with the same red berries. Javelina proof. We don't say proof, we say resistive. Sometimes they go, oh, look, you put a new plant in the air. They'll pick it up and throw it around, just kind of like playing volleyball or something. They don't eat it. They go, no, this is fun. Hey, you try. And then you put it back in the ground, it's fine, but they won't eat the physical plant itself. Once it's rooted, it's bulletproof. Those two are related. And that's all I have with the evergreen things. Let me take a quick sip.
They stay close to the ground.
Yeah, the great thing about Cotoneaster, these spreading shrubs, you can put them on your system, treat them like trees. So once a week watering, drip right here, but their foliage mass spreads out. That'll spread out easily, 6 to 8 feet. One plant will cover this much space. So if you're holding a hillside, erosion control, you used to have a big front yard with lots of rock. You want to have a big one emitter to have a big space. It's a good choice for that. So we frequently design. That's how we use those. That's how we design those. Okay? If ever you need help, guess what we do for a living? We look at cell phones, and we just go, "Hey, what would grow here?" We go, "Well," and when we're looking at your phone or your tablet or whatever, we're looking at what plants are also there. We're looking for companion plants. I'm looking at shadowing. What angles are we at? How much sun's it going to get? And so then I go, oh, if that grows there, this will also grow here. And look, this looks good with a lilac. This looks good with. So we're trying to companion plant things for it. Or if you got the biggest one is, my neighbor got a new RV and I don't want to see it. It's on the property line. Let me help you block that. Or an irritating neighbor on the back deck. We can block that. So we've got certain things. There's some certain rhythms that we kind of get into. Okay. All right, herbs. I brought this one just because I know we're going to have some newbies here. So rosemary is a bulletproof evergreen plant. Does great, but not all of them. So there's probably 50 different varieties of rosemary. Not all of them grow at this altitude. And so, and I bring this up because Phoenix tends to pollute a lot of their rosemary's up here. People go, oh, they died. What happened? I'm such a bad gardener. You were sold the wrong plant. It should have never been up here. Some doggone box store brought it in, just put 100 of these in every one of my stores. It's a Phoenix variety. But here at Waters Garden Center, we only sell varieties that are for here because we know the area, we know what's right. So you've got two types. You've got upright rosemary and you have spreading or prostrate or carpet rosemary. So this one's upright. This is ARP. ARP is a very robust, very tough shrub rosemary. It's up about this tall, nice ball shape. Yes, you can use it in the kitchen. It is evergreen. It blooms a couple times a year with this bright blue or lavendery kind of flowers, usually very early. Your migrating birds will use this as a food source. The bees will come out of hibernation. They'll use this about the time this is in bloom. Bees will be all over. If you're just so hungry and nothing else is blooming, they're using this as a food source. Okay, and then this one, where you make the most mistakes, are the process. There's less. The carpet rosemaries are wimpier. Some of them. So these are the ones that seem to die out a lot. So be real careful which varieties or where you're buying them from. Obviously, we're going to have ones that do well, but they look real similar. You could use them both in the kitchen. They both bloom the same flower. Just one grows like this, one grows like this. That's the only difference. But I brought it just saying rosemary does well. Animals don't eat it. They're evergreen. And be careful what variety. Do some homework before you just buy and plant them in the yard. Because they'll die out in the winter. They'll come back. Next spring is when you go, what happened? The winter got it.
How far does it spread?
Oh, it's almost, maybe more. So rosemary is one of those. They tend to grow when they touch the ground. They form a new plant. They just run. They run across the yard. As long as they got nutrients and water, they'll keep on going. So usually I'll put the drip emitter where I want it to grow, and then when it wants to root someplace else, if it's desirable, fine. If it's not, I just pull it up, cut it off, and go, no, you're not doing that. We will keep order in my gardens. We're going to keep. You don't go wild. We want to keep order. So, okay. I brought this. Roses need a second chance. We are in rose country. We don't have the black spot, very little mildew, a few bugs in early spring, easy to control with some rose food with systemic kind of stuff. But the newer roses coming out, this is a carpet rose. So it grows like this, gets about knee high and spreads. There's a whole other series we're getting deeper and deeper into that are shrub roses. That is, there's no special graft. They're on their own rootstock. And so now they're just more robust. They don't get the bugs. They don't get the mildew. There's nothing that blooms like a rose at this altitude. But roses love dry climates, bright days. They love everything about here. And so if you've been tentative, my grandparents grew roses, but I don't think I could do that. I don't want to work that hard. The new series coming out are easy to grow. The flowers are a little bit smaller, but we're getting more fragrance into them. They're getting bigger. The petal count's getting larger every year. So you can have really nice roses. That's the only reason I brought this. I would say roses need at least 6 hours or more to really get the flowers. If you give it less than that, they tend to want to reach out to the sun. They get kind of floppy, and they need sun. More sun equals more flowers. This grows very well in a container. I've got a shrub rose in a pot about this big. Been in there for years. It's in full bloom right now. It's perfect. I hardly do anything. So I just bring it out. I think it deserves to be on the top, some of the toughest plant list, especially if you want something that blooms a lot. This is one of those. So animals seem to leave roses alone. That being said, sometimes the javelina will eat the buds. They like the flower buds because they're sweet. But generally they'll leave them alone. Sometimes deer will get in some of the big climbers and stuff, but they're so aggressive. They almost need deer to go through and graze every once to keep them in check. So generally they'll leave roses alone. I put them in that. It's worthwhile planting. If you've got heavy populations of animals, I encourage you, buy a test victim. Buy one, put it out in the yard. They're going to notice it night one. This is their living room. If I were to put a plant in the middle of your living room, house, you're going to notice like right away, right? This is their living room, so they're going to notice it like now, and you'll know within just a few days. Did they leave it alone, or did they cook it around like a football, or did they eat it to the ground? So sometimes you just need to test, or just walk your neighborhoods. They're looking at those yards too. If it's growing there, it'll grow in your yard. Or you have fencing. So my backyard's fenced for the dogs, front yard's open for the wild. My nemesis are javelina. A little bit of rabbit, but javelina are my big deal. So, okay, let's go. How are we doing? We're good, right on time. Let's go with grasses, because it's such an unusual plant. I brought this, isn't that pretty? This is Mashudos hibiscus. So my Hawaiian, Californian folks, they want that tropical hibiscus. You can't have it. It's going to die in the winter here. We have Rose of Sharon, which is a flower about that big. It's been in bloom for a couple months now. It's a big shrub. It gets up easily 10 feet. I should keep it in check. This one is this is the biggest of the hibiscus that grows here. It's called Mashudos. It comes in several colors down there. It's got the flowers that are big as your hand, and it's a true perennial. That is, it will dive back to the ground in the winter. And it comes back fresh with this big, kind of hip high, big ball-shaped thing. You can count on it. It's pretty glorious. If you have perennial gardens or cottage gardens, you need one of these. It's one of the prettiest, most spectacular summer through autumn hibiscus that you can have. Such an unusual plant. You don't see many of these because we don't have them in spring, because they're just to the ground. We sell these when they're in bloom. Every morning the new flower comes out. This will be on a shopping cart by the end of the day. Count on it. It'll be out there. So we sell these late summer through autumn when they're in bloom. So Mishuto's hibiscus. Bless you. Okay, so let's go this way. So this is the most popular grass. Again, I think I put my kids through college on this one grass, this pampas grass. I'll give you a warning. Don't just plant any pampas grass. Some of them are ginormous, the size of school buses. They're too big for most yards, and they're painted to maintain. This is called ivory feathers. It's a dwarf pampas grass. Dwarf is relative. The foliage is still up to here, and the flowers are here, but at least it's not 10, 12 feet tall. I think some of these native pampas grasses are too big to enjoy. And so we need to, this one actually blooms better, has more clumps to it, and easier to maintain. We only sell this one here because I don't want you selling it. I don't want you growing. You'll enjoy this one better. So I'm trying to curate plants for you that I know you're going to enjoy more than some of the other box stores. So they're going to buy the bigger one because it grows faster, so it's cheaper. You don't want that in your yard. Just because it's cheaper, you want the better one. So you're seeing this one bloom all around town. An insider tip with this, it needs a lot of food. So you'll see them in bloom right now. They got real thin, wispy, kind of not chubby plumes to them. Those were not fertilized correctly. Ones that are full and chubby, and we're fertilizing with, they bring one. If you use this every 2 or 3 times a year, all-purpose plant, 20 pounds, all-purpose plant food. Can you see that okay? This will make this look luscious. That's how you get these to bloom, okay, to be better. I can drive down a neighborhood and go fertilize, get fertilized. I can just tell you who did just by how healthy this flower is. Okay. For me, this is too big for my yard. I don't want a grass that's big. And you have to cut this down every year back to about knee level. It needs to be reset. Otherwise, you get this brown foliage with the green foliage coming through. It looks mangy looking. You simply cut it back every February, March, sometime in late winter, cut it back, fertilize it. You'll get fresh, new green foliage every year. That's a little caveat that I find a lot of rookies mistake that they make. Okay. The other one is this is a short-lived plant. You're only going to get 10 years out of it, maybe. What happens is the center starts to die out. And so it looks okay, but the center starts to die, it chokes itself out. And finally, it becomes a U-shaped kind of horseshoe-looking thing. And so it needs to be dug out more often than gardeners. There's still some life. It might come back. Not a puppy dog. It's grass that needs to be replaced every few years. Otherwise, it brings you down some. So I find folks don't replace it often. Okay, so pampas grass. Number one seller. Then we go to, see, these are probably all similar. These are switch grasses, different varieties. There's another one here. These are probably real similar. It comes in reds and greens, lots of different grasses. These are, maybe chest high, just above hip high grass, kind of soft. What I love about grass is it just moves in the wind. It just adds a lot of drama. If you're designing, you just want to add some motion. You could put a $1,000 fountain out there. That would be the same thing. Or just plant one grass, and it's such a beautiful plant that adds motion. All of these grasses you're going to cut back to the ground every typically March. Cut it back for light, it'll come back fresh. What I do with my grass is I'll leave them up. So starting November, they'll start to have this straw-looking color to it, has its classic autumn color. I will leave that up there because it's interesting to look at. It's got structure, it still adds motion, it's pretty. But sometime in January, we've had our first couple of snowstorms. Snow gets on, they start to lay over. Now they look mangy looking. That's my cue. Oh, that's it. You don't look ugly in my yard. That's it. Whack you back with a weed whacker or something, or hedgers. I just cut it back. Okay, that's time has been good. I fertilize them in March. They start to grow and come back. So all the grasses are very robust. And I would treat these like I would a tree. Don't treat them like a flower. So water them, good deep soak once a week. That's more than enough to keep these things healthy. So I find most folks overwater these and they get kind of yellow. They look off color. They look chlorotic. And so they'll keep their richer color and thicker if you deep soak them and let them dry out. Oh, I can't push them all up at once. This is the native, goes wild. It's called Miscanthus. This is an evergreen. This is an action evergreen. You'll see in another couple of weeks, maybe start showing now, that have this real pink flower to it. Usually real late. It's kind of in fall, so it's a bit early for this, but in the autumn of the year, this have this pink flower to it. It's also called deer grass. Deer don't eat it, don't bother it. It's kind of a waxy, stiffer. You just come and touch them. You just go, oh, it's pretty robust. So a good little plant here. This is fully mature. And then it'll have pink flowers above that. Okay. Miscanthus. Don't ask me how to spell that. You can take a picture of the tag afterwards. Canvas. This is one of my favorites. I have a lot of these. Doesn't look like much here, but coral forester grass. This has been perennial the year a few years ago. The reason I like this one is it starts to bloom in like April. And it is still in bloom, like full bloom in my gardens right now. It is the longest blooming of all the grasses. Gets up about hip high or so. Has this real pretty straw looking. It's like a miniature pampas grass. Only hundreds of them and smaller. So the whole top of this is nothing but plumes on top. A really, really pretty grass. Very aggressive growing. I do think that the deer and animals would eat this. Because I notice my dogs like to chew on it sometimes. It's like a glorified cat grass. So you might watch where you put this one. Whereas the other ones, they're not going to bother. This one they might. They're untested, but according to my dogs, the rabbits might eat it too. Coral forester. This is a native one. This is grama grass, Grama, grama grass. Now most grama grass you see growing wild has a seed head like this. Notice this one has horizontal seed heads. Just a different variety. We get bored. How do I find something that's unique that no one else has? This one's just called blue grama with the seed heads going like this. Mine is in full bloom, just like this. It's about this big around, kind of full like this. And I don't treat it with any care. It's a native. It just grows, just kind of takes care of itself. I do put it back in the winter. All grasses, again, emphasize. Cut it back so I have fresh, new foliage every. I don't want that brown with the green intermix. I just want green. And the way you do that is just whack it off real quick. Okay? Except for the Miscanthus. It's an evergreen. All the rest of it. This one I use a lot in. This one I use a lot in container gardens. It's actually a red grass. It's called red sedge. I guess it's not a grass, it's sedge. It looks like a grass. It just does this. It goes great with pumpkins. It goes great with where'd my mom go? That just screams fall right there. There you go. That's just a pretty plant. So, but this looks good, like even in spring. You could plant this. It's very unusual to see red in a grass form like this. So another one I've got is this one I cut off, yep, right up about here or so, yep. This one competes really well with with ivy. So I've got a big pot like this with ivy. Ivy usually chokes out everything, and so it just has a way of just suffocating everything. This one loves it. I like to see them two compete. It's like, who's going to win? Oh my gosh, we're going to Darwin. It's like a Darwin experiment or something. Let's see, survival of the fittest. So this one grows up, and the ivy kind of grows out. It's just really pretty, that green, and I've got a variegated ivy with this red foliage. It's striking, just beautiful. So red grass, and then you got a whole series of different grasses. This is fully mature. Okay, you're not these humongous grasses. I think there's a whole series of smaller grasses that are pretty. You can collect grasses. I can see a grass garden very easily, a section or a corner with different collection of grasses. People collect conifers, they collect roses. We also collect grasses. This is something unique to this mountain area. We grow grasses better than anywhere else in the country. And the mountain breeze, it just brings out the drama in all of the grasses. We've got some that are out there striped like this. There's all kinds of stripy textured kind of grasses that you can play with, and all of them will have a plume at the top. This one's called Overdam feathergrass. Got a plume that looks like a feather. That's grasses. Very rarely do I mention. I'll feature a grass every once in a while. I've never had them all together. They look so good. I should show those off. So hopefully that gives you a feel for more than just this. I'll sell 100 of these, 100 of all the other ones. But I don't think most yards handle pampas scratch very well. It's more of a privacy screen than it is accent. It's a property line screen. And it is right by my back patio or something. Okay? And then if we wrap this thing up, while we're on, I guess I should have done this one. This is actually for the screening thing. I got these in smaller form. We got these yesterday. They're just spectacular. Never seen them this big before. This is actually a holly. It's called Colander holly. Now, hollies are going to perform better in the shade than they are in full sun. They'll take a lot of sun, but some of you have that north side. You have areas where you just can't grow some of these big sun-loving plants. You need something with more shade. This would be perfect for that. It's the classic white berry or red berries, white flowers, but it just does this in columnar form. So now you put it right next to your entry into your house, where it's more shaded, and you get something that's evergreen, looks good year-round without any real care. And again, the reason hollies do so well here is because they got a waxy leaf to them, so they don't perspire. They're very conservative with the amount of moisture they're using because that waxy leaf to it. It just doesn't like the sun. This will go 10 feet, about this big around. So it goes like a pencil. So
Can it take any sun at all?
it'll take a lot of morning sun. It's at midday in June when it's like 95, like 10% humidity. It'll grow. The tag says it grows in full sun. I'm just telling you. It's better to give it morning or late day, fine. At midday is rough on it. That's stuff we can help you with. Our job is we drive. I can't help it. It's like a sickness. I need medication or something. But I drive through neighborhoods and go, look where that's growing. I can't believe it. Oh my God. We're looking at where things are at. We travel. We're just down in Cabo San Lucas for a week. First time there. Beautiful place. Look at that. Virginia creeper's growing right there. I thought it was only a mountain plant. It's a native here, but it grows down there too. Very interesting. Can't help it, even when on vacation. Then I'll leave you with this. I'll give you one last bit of advice because we're coming up on it. This is a vine called Boston ivy. Very robust vine. If you need a vine, it's related directly to Virginia creeper. Virginia creeper is the one with the 5. It's got the same leaf. It has 3 leaves instead of 5. So 5 leaf is the Virginia creeper. This one actually self-attaches itself. So if you don't want a trellis, you want something on that block wall, you want it to do its own thing, this one's your plant. Whereas Virginia creeper needs something, that tendril to grab onto things. This one just has roots to kind of grab into things. So it gets us the classic orangey red color fall of the year. and then it is deciduous. That is, it's going to lose its leaves. It's quite striking. Very, very hardy. Full sun. The full shade. Doesn't matter. It'll grow anywhere. Except up. Boston ivy. And lastly, I'll leave you with this tidbit. So we're coming up on it. In October, you really, 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 I can't say, you need to fertilize. The most important feeding of the entire year is coming up in just a couple of weeks. I would say fertilize everything with all-purpose plant. Just it's granular, get it out there, sprinkle around the yard. The reason the fall feeding is the most important, plants are using the food you give it now to form the leaf and flower buds through winter. It's going to use this food for spring growth. And so I can't emphasize it enough. If you want lilacs, you have to fertilize now. You want fruit trees, need to fertilize. It's the most important. Any spring blooming forsythia, lilac, quince, all those spring rhododendrons, azaleas, ilex, or hollies, all need to be fertilized. And I would say evergreens. If you don't fertilize your deodar cedars, your junipers, they get yellow. We call it winter chlorosis. The days get so short. You haven't fertilized them, they just get this off color to them. So I can drive their neighbor and go, fertilize. Oops, they forgot. But you can just tell who did it by the health of the plants and how they look. So just to my friends, if you're part of our garden club or you're getting any of our, I read a weekly garden column, a weekly radio show. I'll make sure the month of October, that's the thing I'll be pushing, going, you really need to do this. But for you all, just use this. It's granular. It'll go through the rock, go through the fabric, just get it on there. And as we get rains and snows for the seasons to come, this will activate, the plants will pick it up and use it. Okay. With that, any last questions? Okay.
Plants in the front.
Well, some of them I just didn't get to because we're out of time. We're like 5 minutes over. So I brought some perennials. I brought this just because, well, I get bored. Have you ever seen a green echinacea? My gosh, it's cool. Yes, you can find echinacea is a commodity. You buy one everywhere. Everyone's got echinacea, but it's purple. They don't have red and orange and green and all the other colors because we're gardeners. We like funky, cool, neat, rare plants. But this one actually grows out green. It will, as it matures, turns to this pinky. Will actually turn pink. It's just unusual, different echinacea. Every yard needs at least one echinacea. It's a tough wildflower for here. It's a good seed source for the birds that are migrating through. I brought it just because, well, I just think it's cool. This is one you'll find. Butterflies like this. I find animals seem to leave it alone. It's called phlox, Phlox, phlox. Great little perennial. Gets about this tall, kind of 2 feet tall. But just one of those fall through it. It blooms right before the mums start. And then with these two guys, these go together. There you go. That just looks good. They're both autumn, late summer, autumn plants. Perennials. Remember, perennial and P, permanent. All good. They come back year after year after year. Annuals bloom like crazy for the year, and then they're done. These two have a lot of these. This is called silver mound or Artemisia. It just does this when it gets about this big and round, like a big old silver mound, real soft looking. It does bloom, but really you're planting it for this foliage. So I like to spot these for the yard just because they're big and they're just so soft and they're native. They're tough as nails. It's hard to find something soft and really tough. This is one of those.
Its name again, Ken?
Silver mound is probably the easiest, but Artemisia, you can go ahead and take a picture of the there's tons of them down there. Okay. Again, mine's probably this big around, kind of at least knee high, just mounding shape to it. Okay. They almost get too big. What I'll do is every 2 or 3 years, I just whack on them because they're evergreen. Then they get too big, they start to choke each other out. So I'll just go back and I reset them. I go, that's it. You either die or you're going to look good. Decide what you're going to do. And whack them back to this far off the ground. Fertilize them. They always come back. Always. Okay. This is a Mediterranean mound. this one's kind of similar. This is as tall as it gets. It ground covers like this. We found this in Albuquerque, of all places. So it's a high altitude plant, evergreen. Gets a pink flower in spring. But if you want a nice evergreen ground covery kind of thing, and I find the animals don't bother this. So it's just a pretty little plant. It would be great in a container, flowing over the edge, or a raised bed, doing the same thing, or just in the ground.
And that's what's that?
This is called Mediterranean mound. No, this actually is germander. This is creeping germander. So a perennial for here. So anyway, smells like geraniums. Again, when you just rub it, gosh, smell that. Animals aren't going to bother that, so they're going to smell that and they go, "Oh, that's no good for me. I'm out of here." So they'll leave that one alone. So when plants have a silver color to them, that's a defense. That's a cue to animals going, you're not going to like this. Don't eat it. So blues, silver, animals seem to leave alone. If they have a heavy fragrance, they seem to leave alone. So if they have two-tone foliage, white on the bottom side, colored on the top, they seem to leave alone. Usually that bottom side is a powder-coated kind of thing, so the animals choke on it when they try to eat it. So that's it. I will hang out as long as you all want. I'm here throughout the day, so yep. Oh, I love it. Yeah, thank you very much. So, thank you. I love it. As a proud father. So, McKinsey made the Retailer of the Year. So, they have a Young Retailer of the Year award. So, it's like 15,000 garden centers in the country. And they picked two guys and a gal. And it's always the East Coast folks. There's more garden centers in the East Coast than there are here. But for Arizona to be recognized nationally as one of the top industry leaders, so yeah, well done. She made the front of Garden Center magazine's front cover as of last week, so we're very proud of her. So proud of Arizona, but she did Prescott. We should be proud. So that's really good. Thank you for bringing that up. Appreciate that. Okay, so I'll release you. Thank you all.